Okay, folks, we're going to continue from the previous video here, sort of giving you this introduction to the equation of exchange and the quantity theory of money. So now, up till now, we've sort of showed you that if we took the equation of exchange, MV equals PQ, and we made some assumptions that Q, the physical quantity of goods and services, is determined by the production function, capital, labor, our technology, nothing to do with money. And at least in the long run, we're thinking of velocity also as sort of being very, very deeply tied to our institutions and our habits and so on and so forth. That means that if the central bank increases money supply by some percentage, prices will rise by an equal percentage. It's what we call a unitary elasticity here. So we want to be able to show that, and we're going to show this from a couple of perspectives. And we're doing this because we think that looking at things sometimes from two ways can add some insight, and it'll be good going forward in this course. So we're going to start off here. This is what we might call a money supply and demand approach. And here we have on the horizontal axis the money supply and money demand. And here we have the price level. The blue line tells us the money supply that the central bank sets. It's essentially exogenous. That's why it is vertical. So we will be seeing in just a second that when the central bank changes the money supply, this blue line will shift. This red line here, it's kind of a 45-degree line. What it is, or really more correctly, what it's telling us, we'll find out that if we have, in terms of percentage change, if we have a percentage increase along the horizontal axis of, let's say, 10%, you will also see a percentage increase here in the price level of 10%. So what that's telling us is that if the money supply increases, this is just a way of restating what we already learned in the classical theory. Money supply increases by 10%, price level increases by 10%, nothing else real changes, nothing else changes. Here is a slightly different perspective here, but I think that it's saying the same thing. This is what we call aggregate supply for goods and services and aggregate demand for goods and services. So let's look at the aggregate supply first. Okay, so we put here 4,000. Okay, so this is what is determined by our production function: capital, labor, technology. What happens with money doesn't matter. Now, this blue line here that slopes downwards is an aggregate demand function. Now, it should be kind of comforting to you that a demand curve slopes downwards in prices. So if prices go up, then the quantity demanded goes down. However, I have to caution you, the logic behind this demand curve is a little bit different from, let's say, the demand curve for flat screen TVs or the demand curve for oil. The idea is this, is that when the price level goes up, that means our real purchasing power, the real purchasing power of our money goes down. Okay, so if we can purchase less goods and services with our money, then our demand is lower. So up here where the price level is high, we have less purchasing power. By the way, we call this the real balance, the measure of real balances. But think of it as just the real goods and services that your money can purchase. So as we move down along this curve, the price level is lower. That means that your money can now buy more goods and services. So you're going to see here that the equilibrium price level here is exactly it's MV equals PQ. Okay, it's consistent, and we're going to see that, and we're also going to see that when the central bank changes the money supply, it will shift this blue line, and I think you'll have a surprisingly intuitive result. So in order to show this result, we actually have a little tool, and we're going to supply the tool for you here. You will see here that we have the same graph over here. We have the money supply and money demand over here on the left, and we have the aggregate demand and supply for goods and services over on the right. Okay, and in our initial scenario, our money supply is 250, okay? Now, let us suppose that we are contemplating, let's say, an increase in the money supply. Let's say that we want it to go up from 250 to 270, okay? What will happen? Okay, you can see here that this line shifted over here, but you can also see that there was a shift up here, okay? And you can see that, okay, from the perspective of money demand and money supply, all that has happened is that since money has increased by 8%. You can calculate this out as an 8% increase in the money supply relative to the baseline. Okay, prices have also gone up by exactly 8%. They've moved from their initial level of 1 to 1.08. Okay, and you can see here that the same thing has happened here. Okay, once again, remember why this red line, the supply is fixed, is because what the central bank does with money does not affect in the long run the productive capabilities of the economy. Instead, what happens is that prices go up by exactly 8% here, and that will get you your quantity theory result. Okay, so we can look at it from the standpoint of money demand and money supply, or we can look at it over here from the goods market. And later on in the course, we're going to be showing sort of a short-run aggregate supply curve which slopes upward. But right now, this is a long-run proposition, and as a long-run proposition, aggregate supply is vertical. Let's just try one more experiment, and then you can try this on your own. Okay, so let's suppose that we're talking about a decrease in the money supply. So let's take this down, let's say to 230. From 250 to 230, and you can see that's a negative increase, a negative 8% change. It's an 8% decrease, and you can see that the money supply line shifted over here, and prices went down actually by 8%. That's what we call a deflation, and that did happen. That happened in the Great Depression, and you can also see over here that we had a deflation. We had prices going down, but once again, because this is we're making this assumption, and yes, it is a long-run assumption. We will be modifying this, but from a long-run perspective, what the central bank did just by creating or destroying money did not have any effect on the real goods and services. In this case, it could be just cookies, oatmeal cookies, and chocolate chip cookies, but the real goods and services that our capital, our labor, and our technology is capable of producing. Instead, the price level went down by 8%. Okay, one more thing to notice here is, yes, we have kept velocity constant here at 16. You are going to be looking at real data, and it turns out that you'll be applying the equation of exchange, and you will see that, yes, in the short run and in the long run, you can see velocity change. So you're going to have to be factoring that also into your analysis. But in any event, we provided you with this tool here, and just to sort of help you understand the logic of what is known as the classical theory. And you know, this, yes, you could think of it as a very elementary theory, but at the same time, every economist will use this as their benchmark, their reference point, and then we relax certain assumptions as our analysis gets a little bit more complicated. So thank you very much.